Hello and welcome to my presentation, not on Agoge, nor Agoge, but Agoge. And you're with me, Jonathan Dunn, with OCI Ancient History, with thanks to Alex Cunningham for producing some material which has been adapted for use in this presentation. So what was it? Agoge in ancient Greek literally meant a raising, like cattle, and it was a compulsory educational cycle for all Spartan boys from the age of 7, lasting into early manhood, and it was necessary to achieve citizenship. It was compulsory for everyone, except if you were expected to become a king. There are two reasons why future kings were exempt, one of which was pragmatic, in case a future king wasn't up to standard, and so, if they failed, that would look bad in their reign. The second is symbolic, to emphasize the superiority of the kings, them claiming descent from Heracles. However, not all kings had not undergone the Agoge. For example, we have King Agesilaus. This because they at the time weren't expected to become kings. The aim of the Agoge was to produce strong males for the Spartan army, to fight not only the enemy outside of Sparta's borders, but also the enemy within, which was the Helots, Sparta's servile population. It was allegedly introduced by the myth-historical figure Lycurgus as part of his Great Retro, which was a set of constitutional reforms. This would put its founding sometime in the 9th century BCE. However, there is a claim in the Suda that it was established by Tyrtaeus, a Spartan martial poet, and the Suda is a Byzantine encyclopedia. This would put its founding in the 7th century BCE. However, this is not likely, and so modern estimates put its founding in either the 6th or the 5th century BCE. What did it involve? There are many aspects of the Agoge, one of which was the allowance of only moderate food. This was in order to let the boys know what it was like, or what it would be like on a campaign, to go hungry. And they were allowed to steal, and the purpose of that was to make the boys craftier in getting supplies. So the whole of the Agoge was geared towards life in the Spartan army. Spartan boys would be punished if they were caught stealing. The purpose of this was not to discourage the boys from stealing, but to make sure that they steal correctly, and to not get caught. We have one story from biographer Plutarch, who says of a Spartan boy who was almost caught stealing a fox. So he hid it inside his cloak, but the fox disemboweled him right from underneath the cloak. But he went to such a great length to avoid being caught. Attendance of the Syssitia was another part. The Syssitia was the common mess meal of the Spartans. There they would listen to the older men discussing politics, and learn the laconic tongue, the ability to produce short, snappy retorts. Also, helots would be introduced, and made to drink obscene amounts of wine, and this would serve as an example to the Spartans as to what not to do. Disciplined hard living was obviously an important part of the Agoge. For example, they were allowed only one garment a year, a cloak, and they weren't allowed to wear shoes. This was to make their feet harder. Teaching by the whole community. So your neighbour was allowed to punish you. And if your father discovered that you'd been punished by your neighbour, then he was actually supposed to inflict another beating on you. There's also this whole thing with a shame culture, whereby the woman would censure or praise Spartans in order to help them conform to Spartan society, and this would be done in public. Training in rival camps led by the Hippocrati. There are 3 of these which were appointed by the magistrate, the ephors, and then these 3 would then choose 100 others, and they would go away in separate camps, rival camps, and train. And this was to instill competitiveness and to ensure that no one let his guard down. There is also pedagogic pederasty for teenagers, and by this I mean a young or teenage Spartan would be given an inspirer, as they were called, and his job was to teach the Spartan through a relationship. It was not supposed to be a carnal thing, it was all about the instruction. We hear of one boy who cried out during a beating, and his inspirer was punished instead of him for failing to instill this property in him. Paul Cartledge, a modern scholar, argues that basic literacy formed part of the Agoge. However, this could have been performed by elder members of a family. Mock hunting, a religious ritual, was also part of it. And we have teachings of modesty by the Agoge, such as the Spartans were only supposed to look down and keep their hands in their cloaks whilst walking the streets. There is evidence to suggest that there is a female counterpart to the Agoge, as we can see in the statue of a young Spartan woman posing athletically, or dancing perhaps. Here she is wearing a peplos, which was a certain type of Greek tunic. It was actually discontinued in the rest of Greece, and the Spartans were dubbed as the thigh flashers for this, due to its slightly revealing nature. They also would take part in choral singing, and we have laconic quips attributed to them, such as that of Argilonis, Brasidas' mother. When Brasidas died, lots of people were praising Argilonis for her son, and she said, "It is true that my son was great, but Sparta has many men better than he." Maidens and youths danced naked at the festivals, with the young men watching. And the whole naked aspect was in order to make sure that the woman would be as fit as possible, physically fit as possible. And the Spartans thought that the fitter the woman physically, the better they would be able to deal with childbirth. How do we even know about all this? Well, we have ancient authors whose work has been transcribed by monks and survived to us today, such as Plutarch, specifically in his Life of Lycurgus. Plutarch wrote parallel lives paired with that of Romans. In this case, Lycurgus' life is compared with a Roman lawgiver, Numa. However, Plutarch was writing during the Roman era, and so his work is likely to be influenced by the later Agoge. Xenophon, he is our main source for this. That's why he's in bold here, his Polity of the Lacedaemonians. He was actually a guest of one of the Spartan kings, and he was staying during the Peloponnese whilst writing, so he had a good access to information. And we have a couple of passing references in Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War. We also have archaeology, albeit it's quite scarce. Here in the picture you will see the temple of Artemis Orthea, and the temple of Artemis Orthea was at one point integral to the Agoge, where they would have a ritual of trying to steal as many cheeses from the top of the sanctuary as possible, whilst avoiding getting whipped. But in the Roman times, as we'll see, it was transformed into an amphitheatre, where, say, the Roman tourists would go to see the Spartan boys being flogged to death, or near death at least. Successes. The famous success of the Agoge is obviously militarily, particularly with the Battle of Thermopylae, whereby 300 Spartans and some other Greek forces managed to hold up a horde of Persians for a week. So hoplite warfare really required discipline, and that's why the Agoge was successful in that respect, because it instilled such discipline in the Spartans. However, there were failures of the Agoge. One of these is the Battle of Leuctra, which was a major battle for the Spartans, which they lost against the Thebans in 371 BCE. And afterwards, Sparta failed to ever regain its strength. The Battle of Sphacteria. This was during the main Peloponnesian War in 424 BCE. And 120 Spartan warriors, products of the Agoge, surrendered. Thucydides, the author of this, writes that no single event during the war shocked the whole of Greece more than that. And that was so shocking that Sparta actually asked for peace from Athens. Aristotle also has some criticisms, more so over Spartan society in general. For example, bribery in the effort, which was one of the officers. And also, he says that the women were neglected, but as we've seen, there's already like a counterpart for females. Contribution to the Spartan Mirage. So the Spartan Mirage was an illusion whereby the Spartans were never supposed to surrender, say, and as we've already seen, this has been disproven with the Battle of Sphacteria. And with the severity of the Agoge, it obviously contributed to this mirage. And the Spartans could have fostered this mirage intentionally in order to make themselves more fearful to the enemies and their helots. Okay, so I've tried to cover as much as possible. Hopefully that was enjoyable and informative. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions of videos, then please leave a comment. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.